Hello, my name is David Dromsness, the General Manager of Miami Missionary Tent Company. I am so glad you got your tent and that you are serious about learning how to use it wisely and safely. I hope my staff and I have served you well up to now, and we will certainly be available for any technical support that you may need. Meanwhile, this video and written instructions provided should answer most of the questions on how to get the best out of your Miami Missionary tent. Let's look briefly at your written instructions. The do's and don'ts page is very important to read. On the back is why you should use a vinyl sealer to extend your tent's life. Fire marshal documents are for any local authority or permit people. Setup instructions will provide in written form how to properly install tent. The last page is concerning uneven terrain. This is a simple but important troubleshooting page to help your tent look its best. If you follow and understand this page, your tent will be tight throughout, which eliminates wrinkles and prevents water bagging. Now let's set up your tent. Carefully clear area where tent is to be set up. Find a location that is as level as possible and high enough for good drainage. To move your tent bags into position, use a dolly if you have it. Make sure the wheels don't rub the tent bag, or use the wide handles on the corners of your bag. Slip your hand through and use your wrist to lift tent bag easily into position. Untie the top and pull the opening as wide as you can so the tent will come out easily. Remove the strap and be sure to put it in a safe place. You'll need it later. Now unroll your first end section. Unfold the end so you will pull just one layer thick across the ground. This will help prevent damaging your tent top. Use the D-rings on edges or seat belt on lace line to move the tent into position. Never pull with the vinyl. Now we'll show unfolding a middle section. After you have set your tent up a few times, you will know just where to start unfolding so your tent portions lay out easily. As we did with the end section, we unfold the middle section so that we pull only one layer thick, trying to catch some air to keep it off the ground. The more helpers to do this, the better. Now unroll the other end section. Pull your tent sections close together so they will be easier to connect. If you have our 20, 30, or 40-foot wide tent, you will have a 2-piece galvanized steel center pole that can be set at 5 different heights, the gold mark being the ideal height. Slide top pipe out until gold mark appears, insert pin provided through hole near the top of lower pipe, and finish with hairpin clip. Walk your center poles into tent. The center pole we use for lace lines will have a pipe top like this. Slide the O-rings over the top, making sure the whole edge of your lace line is on top. Insert the pin provided. This will help prevent a violent wind from lifting the tent off of the center pole. The center pole we use for one-piece tents and long middle sections has a spike top. Loaf up tent to get to the center. Carry in center pole. And slide spike through punched hole where heavy leather is sewn into tent top. Slide washer on spike and insert clip provided. If you have our 60-foot wide tent, you will have either a 3-piece aluminum center pole or a winch center pole. For the 3-piece pole, you will first secure base plate with bolt provided. Then you will have 1 or 2 places to line up with goal line. Push pin through and finish with hairpin clip. Connect your hook and ring set on one side and bolt bell ring halves together. Fix the bell ring firmly to the mast pole using the long bolt provided. Now connect the other hook and ring set. If your tent is in 2 or more pieces, begin lacing it together. To do this, push first 2 rope loops through first 2 holes. Stick second loop through first loop and pull down. Continue doing this till you reach bottom tent edge. If your tent is 60 foot or wider, it will have quarter poles. Watch for hook ring set at about the halfway point to be connected and not overlooked. As you finish up lacing, tie off at end with any simple knot. Be careful to connect hook ring set at bottom edge of tent. Now, close valance by pressing Velcro firmly together. Pulling with the D-rings, stretch your tent out as best you can. Using a tape measure, go out 7.5 feet on the corners, and tap in stake. Angle the stakes slightly away from the tent. This will help keep the rope from sliding off. Drive stakes deep, leaving enough to tie your ropes. All stakes between corners should be just 6 feet out from tent edge. Repeat this around tent. In the rope bag, you will find either 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch staking rope. Tie one end to D-ring on tent as shown. Wrap the other end around the stake at least 2 or 3 times, leaving approximately 2 feet of slack, and tie knot. All of our knots hold very well and yet are easy to untie when you take your tent down. We will show another close-up of this knot later. Insert wall poles and attach to tent with washers and nuts provided. Stand wall poles at a 30-degree angle inside tent. Before moving to poles inside of tent, we tighten any loose ropes just enough to help hold tent in position. If your tent is our 60 foot or wider, you will have quarter poles in your tent. With the pins provided, fasten these quarter poles to the aluminum domes that are affixed to tent top. Push them up a little at a time, but not all the way up. That will come after you have tightened all staking ropes. Before raising center poles, please carefully read instructional label on pole. For 20, 30, and 40 foot wide tents, you can lift your galvanized steel center pole with our pole lifter. Or, if you didn't purchase that tool, you can easily lift by using rope and a wood post as shown. For tents 60 foot and wider, you will have an aluminum pole. Lift the pole into position using 6-foot rods applied. If you have a winch, begin cranking up the last half of the pole. If the winch becomes hard to crank before you reach the goal line, check your winch and cable, and also look for tight ropes. With a little more slack in your ropes, the winch, as well as the center poles without winches, should go up much easier. Remember, you should only need to use one hand to operate the winch. Now insert pin provided, and relax the cable. Your tent pole is safely locked into position. Check that center poles are as straight as possible. Before tightening corners, be sure neighboring tie-down points are loose. Starting with the 4 corners, stand these wall poles up with the foot about 6 inches outside the tent. When we finish in a moment, they should be straight up and down. Using trucker's ratchet provided, hook onto D-ring, and twist loop as shown over stake to keep from slipping. Pull out slack belt and ratchet tight. Now retie ropes. This is how you safely release ratchet. Now, with remaining wall poles on a slant, tighten your lace lines or middle points first. We like to have 2 teams across from each other to help keep our center pole straight. Finish with points next to corners. If you are short of help, the trucker's ratchet is a wonderful helper. Here's another close-up of that great knot for the stakes. When all staking ropes are tight, proceed to stand the wall poles straight up, one by one. If you have our 60-foot or wider, you will have quarter poles. Stand them up as straight as possible. If your tent has a rain flap to cover the lace line, we like to close it after the tent is up. That way we can get all the wrinkles out. Just press Velcro firmly together all the way down. If you don't feel comfortable climbing on tents, you can do this while tent is still on ground. If your tent has a bell ring, you will have a rain cap to cover the bell ring opening. This will keep every drop of water out of your tent. If you are not as agile as our tent man, you can use a ladder to get on or off of tent. We encourage you to keep your tent as tight as possible to prepare it for bad weather. To take your tent down, first remove your wall poles and throw them clear of tent. You may need to loosen ropes on corners first before removing those wall poles. If you have winch center poles, remove pin and lower winch. As carefully as possible, lower your center poles to the ground. Unlace tent portions. And remove bell ring bolts, pins, etc. Remove center poles from tent area. Untie staking ropes. And begin folding tent as shown. It is important to make tent as small and tight as possible so it will easily fit in tent bag. Retie with strap. And pull tight. To fold the middle section, count down about 5 holes like our man on left just did and begin folding. At the end, fold in half and begin rolling up. Congratulations on a job well done. Here is a shot of a tent set properly. Everything is nice and tight throughout. Following will be some effective ways to achieve this in your tent, as well as caring for and maintaining your tent. This example shows that although tent top is tight, the valance is loose. The square and rectangle tents may require a few setups or extended use to find its shape and stretch out tight. As long as your four corners are tight, kick in wall poles between and retighten ropes as necessary. One man can use a ratchet and do this very effectively. When finished, stand up poles again and tighten ropes. If valance is still not tight, repeat this process again. In high wind situations, you may find you need to secure your quarter poles with a stake. Here we use simple and cheap rebar and tie off. This will also work for your wall poles. If you need to move a tight wall pole, rope and a wood post will easily move pole as needed. If your wall poles are sinking into wet or soft soil, a simple piece of plywood will fix that. To extend the life of your sidewall, it is important to keep it secure to your tent as shown here. There are numerous ways to secure your sidewall to the ground with stakes, cable, etc. We show one example using 2x material and rope to weight and secure sidewall to ground. This is especially effective when heating and cooling your tent. When not using your sidewall, be sure to roll it up rather than fold. Keeping creases out of sidewall will extend its life. For safety, here are a few ideas for your stakes. Spray the tops of your stakes with bright spray paint. Apply duct tape. Use rubber chair tips. Tennis balls. Or a strip of vinyl or rag. If you have a cut in your tent top, repairing it is very easy to do. Whether your tent is on the ground or in the air, place piece of plywood behind cut. Prepare patch with at least 1 inch overlap on each side of cut. Rounding corners makes the patch look much better. On smaller patches, apply vinyl glue to the patch. Apply patch and press firmly. Then pull back and let the air hit it for a few seconds. Then reapply. This will speed up the process. Go back a little later and check the edges. Apply additional glue as necessary. For larger chairs like this L shape, we will use 2 overlapping patches. Because of the length, we glue just one end first. Then apply glue to tent top and apply as before. Now flip tent over and repeat on underside. For small abrasions or pinholes, no patching is necessary. We have color vinyl glue available. Just a small application or 2 will do the job. To clean your tent, apply water and use any cheap, non-concentrated laundry detergent. We use a nylon bristle brush, which is firm but not abrasive, to scrub tent. For spot cleaning, you can use a glass cleaner, WD-40, citrus wipes, or even stronger industrial cleaners. No matter what you use to clean your tent, experiment on a small area initially to be sure you get the safe results you desire. You can also use a mix of 3 parts water, 1 part Clorox to clean areas of your tent and help fight mildew. You must do one area only and wash tent top immediately so you won't lose any of the gloss. We also highly recommend our Ultra Gloss Sealer. This protectant not only seals into plasticizers that keep the tent supple, but seals out dirt and pollutants, adding not only to its life, but making it largely self-cleaning. Apply with sponge or, for larger tents, a sprayer. We know that these troubleshooting tips will be very helpful in caring for your tent. Let us know if we can be of further help, and also if you have any ideas on how to care for, maintain, and extend the life of your tent.